I guess I'm on. All right. Hey, y'all, what's going on? Welcome for yet another Friday show. Just give me a little bit of time, as always, where I have to do my, Facebook sharing thing as I do every Friday show. So just give me a little bit here. And if you're watching, and especially if you're on Facebook, share this show. Share it with your friends. Hit the share button right now. Like, do it right now. So yeah, hit the share button and spread the word because today's going to be a really great educational show. And this is a show idea that I got from my time hanging out with some different guys, and one of them will be on this show. So just give me a second, guys. I gotta just share this thing on out to a few different groups and get some people joining. And it's definitely going to be an interesting a show today. So just hang on, give me another minute or two here. And if you're listening on podcast channels, feel free to skip ahead, skip ahead like a solid 30 seconds, maybe a minute, and you can catch the actual start of the show. But this is a live show. I do love the live viewership on it, so I have to gin up the conversation by getting people in the chat. Now I am bringing people in from some groups that I'm a part of that this would be considered new content to them. They're not exactly my usual places where I share my live streams. So but this show really covers the concept that people get wrong all the fucking time, and we are going to set the record straight. So just give me a second here. I just want to share to a couple of their groups, get some of my international friends in here. So just bear with me. I'm actually spreading this thing a lot further than I normally do. So yeah. Just give me be patient with your boy. Let's, oh, all right. And we are done with all of the sharing. So what's going on, Dwayne? Thanks for joining the show today, bro. Let's see here. Can I get that on my All right, I guess the one place where I didn't share it was my own page. So I'm gonna take care of that real quick. Mm-mm. Sorry, guys. I know this is dead air, not the best. Give me a second. Almost done. How do I add this? Okay. Alrighty. I think we finished that part of it. All right. What's going on, Nicole? Nicole and Dwayne, what's cracking, y'all? What's cracking? So, today is a show that I promised. This is the show that I promised. We're going to talk about, the concept of transgender or third gender, or the concept of the third gender. Essentially, before colonialism in, non-American, non-Christian cultures, for whatever reason, there's a misconception. There's a, I think it flies with a lot of the hoteps, if you guys don't know. In the Black community, those are our resident conspiracy theorists. So, among the conspiracy theorists, people say, well, there's an agenda, and this transgender thing is new, and they just cooked this up, and it's not like this is a new thing. We don't have to take in this, and this. And what today's show is going to do is really help people understand that the concept of transgender, the concept of the third gender, is not brand new at all. Not new at all. Okay. This is not a new concept. So I brought one of my friends on. What's up, Javon? I brought one of my friends on. His name is Emil. It's one of the homies from the Trans Supporter Brotherhood. It is one of the Facebook groups out there for men who date transgender women to kind of commune with each other and fellowship. So I'm gonna bring my main man on right now. What's going on, bro?
Hey, what's up, Chris? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. It's been a while since I've had a new guy on the show, a fellow member of the TSB on the show. So welcome. It's been a minute though, bro. I know I haven't been on the Zooms lately.
Yeah, I know. My work schedule's been crazy because I work on weekends. So unfortunately, I've been missing out on the Zooms. I miss seeing all the guys, and there's familiar faces. But I'm happy you reached out.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, bro, let's just dive right in it. I kind of frame this, letting people know, like, essentially, we're on some MythBuster shit today.
Yeah.
Because it is a myth that transgender is a new concept. It's new. I think for a lot of people, it's one of those situations where it's new to you, and when people say it's new, the to you is silent. Like, no, it's new to you. It's not new, just to you, because a lot of people in America have been raised in a Christian oriented world that, that views the world in a way that's frankly simplistic compared to the way the world really is, especially when it comes to genders. That's why they say dumb things like Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve, and whatever else. Like, it's just dumb stuff. But
Yeah, the list goes on. Yeah.
So yeah, man, I wanted to since you're the knowledge source here today, I wanted to jump right in and let's dive into some different cultures around the world, different cultures throughout history that have made space for people of the third gender, transgender, non-traditional individuals in terms of how they express their gender, all that stuff. So
Okay.
we're going to jump right into just some of the African cultures that
Okay.
kind of see things differently. So take it away, bro.
Okay. So I'd like to make a disclaimer that I am not a scholar. I don't have a degree in this. I really sought out the knowledge because of the relationship that I started. And because I was in a relationship with a trans woman, I wanted to, one, understand more about, the background and the history. For some reason, I was called to the history. And I think one of the main reasons why is because you always hear this, like, especially amongst, people in the diaspora or Pan-African or even just straight up African leaders like Mugabe or whatever of certain countries, like they will say this is a European import. This was brought in, like this was like brought in from the outside. We didn't have this before, and that was reinforced also by a lot of the modern evangelical people going over there and evangelizing, Africans to, with the word of, with the Bible and everything. So I had to, like, for my own sanity, I had to get down to the bottom of it. So I scoured the internet for whatever I could find, and I came up on a few gems and also an individual who also, I think he had a channel on I don't know if he still updates it, but it's on YouTube. He goes by James Speed, but his angle was more biblical, so he was trying to actually more like identify people of the third gender within a biblical context, where I wasn't so much considering that, but just more like a pre-colonial. So before they came with the missionaries the evangelizing people away from their native religion and their native beliefs to Christianity, or Western Christianity as we know it. So that's kind of the
Wow.
background. So,
Man, I
and
didn't know James was a content creator too.
James Speed has he's yeah, man. I found
Yeah.
him on YouTube. So I found his
What the
videos.
fuck?
And
We've had his wife on the show uh
Michaela, yeah,
quite
yeah.
a few times. I didn't know that he was a content. He was always a shy guy, like, oh no, I don't want to be on camera.
He is
And lo and
shy.
behold, this fool got his own YouTube channel.
Yeah, man. He
I'm
got
about to
it.
check it out.
Yeah, yeah, and he drops knowledge, but like I said, it's more from like a biblical lens. And what
Well,
I
here's
was
the
looking
channel, y'all. Y'all can check it out. I'm just gonna showcase this real quick.
okay.
So this is it. This is James Speed's channel. Go check it out.
There you go. Look, hashtag trans attracted, hashtag Bible, hashtag polygyny. So that's his angle. That's the way he's
Mhm.
approaching it. And this is a man that's very well versed in scripture, way better than me. I'm not versed in scripture, but you know, it is what it is. Everybody has their own angle. I was more looking for like historical evidence, right?
Yes, sir.
Like the anthropological like studies done and things like that. And let me tell you, Africa was really difficult. All I could find was tidbits, but nothing. Because okay, for the most part, I think most of us can agree it's an oral tradition. It wasn't always written and passed down. So oral traditions, they can die out very fast, especially when Western culture is basically Africa was colonized, all of Africa pretty much up down, with Catholicism, Protestants, whatever, like they all came, right? The priests, the
Hmm.
Jesuits, they all came and they all did their thing. And so in that, what I learned that happened with Africa, along with um, other cultures, is that when those Jesuit priests or whoever it may be saw people who didn't fit this binary, they were kind of they were told to either keep those people to the side, or like uh, kind of like, I'm going to take an example, and this isn't Africa, but I'm using the example because I believe that this happened across the board. For example, in Hawaii, they had a term for a third gender that was mahu, right? And that was their term, right? And there's no equivalent to that necessarily. We could try to fit an equivalent. We could say it's trans, or we could say it's, I don't know. Let's just, I guess we would use trans, but essentially, it was a male body. Mahu was a male bodied person who showed up in the world as with this feminine aesthetic, and so, and would take on roles, gender roles, which were not typically male, right? Well, if you imagine those people pre-colonial, and then priests and Christian like Puritans coming over and seeing that, and then essentially what I learned is that the people of that culture would hide those people because they were afraid that these colonizers would, if they saw them, would act more hostilely, because these people were visible, and so they got pushed to the side and kind of never came back out, because they got pushed to the side into the shadows, and it gets buried, right? It gets buried with the history, this oral history that is usually taught word of mouth through word of mouth, is now hush hush. You got to keep it on the down low. We can't talk about this because some negative, something negative can happen to us, because they don't, obviously they picked up on the fact that they either thought these people were immoral, or whatever they came with, right? Whatever
Hmm.
argument they came with. So they had to push them to the side. And so in pushing them to the side, they kind of went into the shadows. And then there you go. You're losing that cultural kind of like acknowledgement of more than just this male female dynamic, you know. And then just this binary system is reinforced by the church, reinforced by these religious people, you know, because
Mm-hmm.
that's what they want to impose, you know, like very rigid. And that's what they did with Africa too. And Africa had an oral history. So I found some really cool quotes.
Oh yeah. Did you want the one with the bunch of quotes or the smaller
Well,
one?
let me read you one, and this
Okay.
one is in reference to so Luanda, which is modern day Angola, and the Portuguese colonized Angola, so they speak Portuguese today, along with whatever native African language. But so one thing I learned is that in reading these excerpts, which were usually either made by priests who were observing the tribes or the people, or anthropologists, you have to realize that when they're writing notes about what they see, they're doing it from their own lens. So it can actually be a negative view, but you have to read through, you know, you have to like see through that and see, okay, this is evidence. And so I picked up in Angola there is the term chibados, and it said Luanda, modern day Angola. There's evidence to show acceptance of third gender natives. The chibados, and then in quote here, this is the quote of this I think a Jesuit priest or explorer. He says they're extremely great, quote, extremely great fetishizers who went around dressed as women, and they by great offense call themselves men. They had husbands like other women, and in the sin of sodomy they are just like devils. Okay.
Oh wow.
This is the quote of a guy named Viegas, Viegas, in 1930. So this was
Wow.
yeah. So, you know, you could obviously see that this person is viewing them as lesser than like not even human, you know,
Mm-hmm.
almost like a spectacle, right? But in his negative, you know, in testimony of you know what he's writing, you see that he's describing that they went around dressed as women, and they by great offense called themselves men. They had husbands like other women, and another one referring to the Shibados by a Jesuit, João dos Santos, 1625. This is 1625. Quote, attired like women and behave themselves womanly, ashamed to be called men, are also married to men and esteem that unnatural damnation and honor. So you
Mm.
see, he says, and they esteem that unnatural damnation and honor. So he's saying that these people are like hold themselves at high esteem, but he's seeing it as like a
Mm.
damnation. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so
So wait,
that
did the other people like I mean in society as a whole in that culture like they were they held in high esteem as well or was it just
well, this is the thing is that I'm going off of these quotations from
mm,
historical context, but we don't know. I believe
mm,
that they did. I believe that if there was no guilt
mm-hmm.
associated with their way of being, then
Yeah.
I would can only deduct that society supported them because there
Yeah.
was no sense of guilt or sense of inferiority. And
Mm,
we can actually see this in other cultures too, which is what I really wanted to do is do a lot of the comparison because like in our modern day culture and today we hear stories like, for example, up until recently, right, being trans has been seen as a mental illness and treated as a mental illness, right?
yeah. Yeah.
So what is the difference between that and then what these quotations say, basically looking at these people almost like as sick people, but they're just noting what they're seeing. So
Mm-hmm.
so the proof is that yes, it did exist and it was there prior to their arrival. So
Yes.
debunking everything about importing it, this is an unnatural thing imported from the outside, and it just keeps on getting just that myth just keeps on getting busted as I dug and kept digging and digging and finding more and more in different cultures outside of Africa. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Another example that I found for Africa says the Ankole prior to colonization, the Ankole people in what is now Uganda elected a woman to dress as a man and thereby became an oracle to the god Mukasa. So
Mm.
that's one thing I want to point out is that gender roles we have to separate because in our society I feel like we don't separate gender roles from sexuality as much. So
True.
so we see that in ancient cultures a lot of it didn't have to do with sexuality. It actually had to do with the more of the gender role of that person in that society, which kind of really is it's very different from the way we see things.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And the way that it said thereby becoming an oracle to the god Mukasa. Here's
Mm-hmm.
another quote. Bangola, which is modern Democratic Republic of Congo. The Bangola people's animist beliefs were carried by shamans, would
Mm.
dress in women's clothing in order to gain the ability to solve crimes such as murder. This is just a quote, right? But I see I see cross culturally
Mm-hmm.
like a parallel between shamans and like other like kind of like otherworldly powers and people who were transgender, what we would see as transgender. So whether it be in like for example in India they have hijras, right? The hijras is a caste of uh, of women who are a third gender, but they're trans women. And they're
Yes.
the male body, they dress as women. And part of the things that they do is they go around, they give
This one.
blessings at births.
Oh,
Okay, so
is this them or no?
so that is from a book that it speaks of hijras, but what is here is what you see here is a chapter on transgenders and the Sanskrit word. So Sanskrit is an ancient language, right? Thousands of years old. This
Mm-hmm.
language is before Hindi. You know, you have the Hindi that they speak today, but Sanskrit was even before that. And
Mm.
they had words, which you could see, Shandu. It says the Sanskrit word Shandu refers to men who behave like women or whose manhood completely destroyed. The word Shandi similarly applies to women. So the reverse, women
Mm-hmm.
who show up with male energy, right? So
Mm.
you have this Sanskrit word, which is
Mm-hmm.
Sanskrit is this ancient language, right?
Yeah.
That is identifying these people, right? So there is language for them in this ancient language. Now you tell me, and this language is dates prior to the colonization and pre-colonial era. So you tell me,
Mm-hmm.
like I pretty much think that the myth is just busted right there, just
Yeah.
looking at
Right.
that. And what I learned is that not only we say third gender, but believe it or
Yes.
not, other cultures also had multiple, depending on the tribe or on the culture, there could be as up to 6 genders in that culture.
Mm.
Right. And
Wow.
so so yeah. I mean,
It's a lot.
yeah.
It's a lot, but yeah, it's a straight up myth that transgender, third gender, anything that is outside of the modern Western view that there are just men, cis women, nothing else. Obviously that is not true. That is not the way that the world as a whole has seen it throughout human history. And many cultures have made space for multiple genders and made space for their fellow humans to show up however they want to.
As
And yes,
themselves, as their
absolutely.
right, as how they
Yes.
showed up, right? So
Yeah. Because the world is, it's a complicated place. And a lot of times when I start talking to friends, whoever, not just about history, but about science, I say, reproduction is a inefficient, crude, like the way that humans reproduce, it's very crude and inefficient. There are things that not everything falls into X, Y, and XX, and there's a lot more out there. The world is way more complicated than the simple one that we have been raised to believe in. And it's this
mhm.
world history, this examining other cultures, just further backs that up, especially when we go to African cultures, because as an American, especially a Black American, that is something that we are heavily steeped in Christianity. So we're always talking about, well, that's just a white man, and we got our conspiracy theories, and we didn't do that, they did this to us, and all, like, it's just it's all stupidity, it's all bullshit, it's all ignorance. That's why if I know anybody and they actually identify as a hotep, you're gonna have to earn back your respect, because it's gone instantly. Like, it's just, you're taking narratives that don't make any sense just to try and sound smart. It's awful.
Yeah, it's easy to take something and try to bend like the truth to
Yeah.
fit your narrative, but
Hmm.
I think that it's not black and white, and the world is not black and white, and we know that the world is more than just this strict binary system, right? They want us to
Hmm.
look at it, it's just like this or that, and that's it. When there's
Yes.
this gamut of like in between and people falling in between, sexuality can be like that too, you
Hmm.
know. Um,
Oh, yeah.
and gender can be like that, and you can look at them separately, but we're learned, like these are all things that I've learned like within like the 4 years that I've been in my relationship. And before, I
Hmm.
didn't take interest in it because I didn't really know. I had always heard of like the Native American, the two spirit like
Yeah.
identity, which like was vague to me, but like I was like, okay, so I had an idea that
Hmm.
this could exist outside of like Western dynamic, but yeah, a lot of the I feel like the African American experience is so steeped in trauma of slavery that you hear about like buck breaking and these things, and so you're saying, well,
Oof.
so they come up with this conclusion that, well, they're trying to feminize the black man, and this is all a product of that and this, and like,
Yeah.
like I'm not denying buck breaking, that's fucked up and that's some shit that
Hmm.
happened, but that doesn't mean that just now that anybody who is male bodied and show and experiencing, you know, showing effeminate behaviors and wanting to gravitate more to the gender role of what women do, that doesn't mean that that's linked to buck breaking. No,
Hmm.
that not at all. And so, and the truth, you can see it in the history, because there were there were people who existed like this before colonization. And actually, if anything, colonization helped marginalize these people even more. Now,
Mm.
did they show up, like, I think one of the unique things about our society is that we're pretty like Western culture. We have a lot of technology. So actually, trans people can go through different procedures to try to what? Assimilate to our cis normative
Hmm.
standards. But imagine a society that doesn't reject, right, this
Hmm.
identity, but embraces it. Do you think that the dysphoria is going to go up or down?
Yeah, definitely would go down if the standard. I mean, I would just have to assume this it would go down if the standard wasn't set, for women to for any woman of trans
If
experience to have to fit in
Yeah,
and fill a certain slot. Like, you be in this slot, and if you don't fall in this slot, you don't get validated. And
right.
a lot of times we even talk about, in different circles. Obviously in conversation we're talking about, hey, somebody doesn't have to be attractive or fit a certain slot for you to have to respect their gender identity, their gender expression, to give them basic human respect. They don't have to look a certain way for you to respect that. And we have these conversations because obviously not everybody fits in all the little slots that society has given them. And even with the whole trans thing, at least in America, it's like there's even a slot for that now, where it's like, okay, here's your little box. And the younger folks are coming up saying, all right, well, I'm gender non-conforming, non-binary, I'm gender queer, I'm not going into this slot
I'm not
anymore.
going into the box.
I'm going to be me, and I'm not going to get the breast implants. I'm not going to take the pills. I'm going to do whatever, but society is still very, officially society is still very, very rubric to male, female. That's it. Because I think they're just starting to add an X in there for identifications. And, what was that? I was filling out a form for a job, and then I finally saw like transgender and or I think it was just like they didn't even you don't even have to say which one you are anymore. Like you don't even have to identify. It was like really interesting, very forward thinking. But these things happen because just the way society's built, where it's just like society's still very simple, this or this, and if you got to do whatever you got to do to your body to fit into one of these two. But and obviously for men, we're talking about we're talking about like for guys, really, are you straight? Are you gay? Are you this? Are you that? Where do you fall into? You have to fall into one of these things. You can't be free flowing and like whoever you like or like whatever kind of person you like. It's like structured,
right?
Box. That's what this I forget the guy's name is. Tony. What's this guy? It's an amazing guy I did a documentary with. But he was talking about this thing called the man box. It's just like, anyway, I'm sorry, we're diverting the conversation away from ancient cultures and all that.
No, it's all good. It's good.
Bro, we can jump right into the Native American thing, because somebody in the comments brought that up already about the two-spirited people. And it's actually funny. Not funny, but I don't know if you've seen Lovecraft Country, but they worked that into the show somehow. This was Lovecraft Country is a show about, magic and, Black people in the South. It's set in the South in like, I don't even know. It's probably like the 60s, early 60s, maybe. I don't know. I'm sorry. I really should go and verify when that is. But it was Jim Crow was in vogue. So they still had the sundown counties and all that stuff. But somehow, some way, they found their way onto like the ship of an old, colonial person, and they had a Native American woman on there, and she was two-spirited, or this Native American person, because it's not a woman or man, it's two-spirited individual, and they were just all freaked out because these were, these are people from like the 60s or 70s, like they never seen, heard of anything like this before, like, and their dad was like, what are you? Unbeknownst to the viewer, he's actually like really, really into that. He just sadly is from an era where, certain things weren't possible. But it was just interesting that they wove that common, like the two-spirited Native American person is like something that's becoming, I think, more and more common knowledge as time goes on. That's what I'm.
Right. And that term definitely has been used. Even I've seen it applied even like outside of the Native American context, like people either identifying as it or I've even seen it as like a category of identity, like on OkCupid. For example, if you go into that, they have that as a box that you can identify as. So, I just see that as like probably just, people trying to be progressive and being inclusive. Mm-hmm. But the two-spirit culture, I found like a golden nugget on the internet. It was a lecture given by a professor, a PhD professor at a Native American individual by the name of Harlan Pruden, Harlan Pruden, at the University of British Columbia. You can find this video on online on YouTube, and this individual does a beautiful breakdown of two-spirit culture prior to colonization and after. And so the term I learned two-spirit, number one, it came in the 90s. It came in the 90s. Before that, there was a term called berdache or something that was like given, like coined by Europeans when they saw these individuals. And prior to that, uh, like um, like 1492 to 1990, there was this term berdache used. But up to contact, so up to colonial contact and before, um, all the nations that actually, because not every native nation had two-spirit individuals, but the ones that did had their own words to describe other genders. So what the word for one tribe is can be different for, for the Sunni is different from the Navajo, and but they still acknowledge these people. And so I got some nuggets because the their terms didn't necessarily, again, it didn't deal just with sexuality. It had to do with the gender role of that individual and their social role within the community. And one thing I learned, which was really like kind of like, so as somebody who is trans attracted, right? A man who is trans attracted, quote unquote, your sexuality is always in question or challenged, right? By people who may not understand. But what I learned is that because they didn't have words for LGBTQ, like they didn't really have these words, right? There was no equivalent to those things. They just kind of they had so there were taboos. For example, the like two male warriors, if they were the same gender, these two male warriors would not be a compatible match. You would not put them together. But this male warrior, perhaps with a two-spirit, woman, right, or male-bodied individual identifying and living as a woman, they would be what is called a good match, right? Not taboo. And that was seen as within a heterosexual kind of heteronormative lens, not heteronormative in our definition, but in their own definition. So let's see if I can, let me see. So you couldn't have two warrior men having sex and hooking up with their own gender. However, a two-spirit male-bodied individual could take on a straight man as their husband. This is speaking of the Cree tribe specifically, because if you're having sex outside your gender, then you'd be considered straight. So as long as you're not having sex within your gender, you're still considered straight, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't share the same gender identity as my partner. She uses her pronouns, and shows up different in the world than I do. So we're actually compatible. That's a balanced match. That's a match that works, right? And that's what they were seeing. Similarly with female assigned individuals taking on wives, again, outside of their gender, right? So it could be a woman, a female bodied individual who identifies as man and even goes to the war parties. Imagine that. Imagine a woman going to the war parties with the men, coming back home to her wife.
Well, and I think the thing that people watching this who may who are trying to learn, I think one of the things that they might be confused about when they're hearing you talk about this stuff is the fact that they don't know that there is a difference between biological sex and gender expression. So when Emil is talking about these warriors and these other kinds of people, the tribes understand you come into the world one way, but your gender expression really defines where you fit into society. And these are women born as a woman, but her gender expression is not that of your average woman, and it takes on many masculine qualities enough to take a wife. Same with, male body born at, assigned male at birth is what we say now.
Right.
People who are assigned male at birth, having a gender expression to the point where they can be married to, a more average male who is more masculine, while that particular individual or woman has, expresses herself as a woman, has more feminine quality. So it's just, sometimes people conflate the two things. So then, when they're
Yeah.
hearing you talk, they're like, wait, what? Huh? No, there is a difference. So how you come into this world has nothing to do with your gender expression. And we are talking about gender expression, gender roles, sexuality, all that kind of stuff in cultures outside of the one that we were really brought up in, the one that kind of dominates most of, well, all of the Western world. And so I just had to drop that in there, Sorry
Yeah.
to
And
completely
in the
derail the conversation,
No,
man.
it's very important actually to actually point out that the focus is not on sex. It is focus on gender roles and how that person shows up, right? So
Hmm.
and another like taboo would be putting, two spirits together if they're both the same gender. It won't
Mm.
work. So that was something very interesting, and the lens that it could be viewed as just like heteronormative is kind of very different as again in our society. Like if you're a trans attracted guy, sometimes your sexuality is going to be questioned, like, well, are you bi, are you gay, what are you, what I mean, like, last time I don't feel like it, I just kind of still feel like myself, I just, yeah. So anyways, the these things have been stripped from a lot of cultures. So actually, a lot of these cultures are relearning their identities and these identities, because example, if because Native Americans also were evangelized kind of the same way that African people were, right? So
Uh-huh.
now all of a sudden they're experiencing homophobia within their culture.
Mm.
And the one of the best examples for that is Jamaica and Uganda, where you have evangelical people going over there and just preaching the Bible. And did you know that so Britain, the British Empire, a
Yes.
lot of their colonies, they had buggery laws instilled on the. They had these laws called buggery laws, which prohibited anal sex, believe it or not. And these laws were kept even after the colonial countries, so quote unquote, left. Right, these laws,
Uh-huh.
they were called sodomy laws. And who was concerned with sodomy? Well, priests, right. So that, sodomy, and this is sodomy, and this so they actually kept a lot of those laws. And so that's where you see these laws that prohibit, like same sex relationships.
Hmm.
They're just clinging to old colonial laws that don't even that weren't even from their own culture, right? And so if you can be native. This is for like Jamaica, Uganda, now Native Americans, because they're in the U.S.
Yeah.
They could simply just experience homophobia within their culture. But the great thing about going back to your roots is that if you're in a native space and a traditional space, and you learn about maybe like not like in say the Navajo, they have their own terms, their own word for two spirit, right? Two spirit is the umbrella term that came in the 90s, but then all the other tribes have their own words, right? So I
Uh-huh.
think I want to say, I don't want to get it wrong. I want to say Natle, but that could be either the Sunni or Navajo. But say you learn, right? You're of that tribe and you learn of that word. Then
Yeah.
all of a sudden, you don't have to choose between your culture and your identity anymore, because you
Hmm.
see yourself in that culture, right? How many people have had to choose between their culture and their identity? because they don't feel that they're accepted within their culture, right?
Yeah,
Especially within the Black
crazy.
community, right?
Absolutely.
So I feel like the more, if we learn more of these things, then we could be more embracing of our sisters who don't fit, our whatever we've been fed. And I got nothing with like nothing wrong with ancient Egypt and ancient Kush, and that the Hoteps are really into it, and I think that there's a lot of knowledge to gain. But I don't think that knowledge should be used as like a way to prop yourself up as a straight person and say like, oh well, and like use that as some type of tool against your sister or brother who may be queer, as if
Absolutely.
because yeah, it's just it doesn't hold up. It's just kind of more self-righteous, it feels like.
Well, in the spirit of being self-righteous, side note about all of those evangelical priests or all those priests evangelizing, talking about sodomy is wrong. A lot of them was doing sodomy too.
They were doing
So
it. They were doing it.
they were raping little
Exactly.
boys and shit. So let's be
And
real about it.
still, and up until recent history, have done it.
I mean, I don't know. I can't tell you. I can't tell you what actually stopped. They just stopped getting caught. People stopped coming
Yeah.
forward. Who knows? There might be new people coming forward, but
Talk about
it's just,
suppression.
oh gosh, the Catholic Church is it's a beast. But it's just really one of those things where it's like, these people, they're coming over, they're changing culture, they're teaching people to hate their fellow man, they're teaching people to not accept their fellow humans for who and what they really are. And it's really sad, and it's actually kind of disgusting, and I'll even say evil, to encroach a religion on people that frankly teaches you not to like other people. Like that's it's
It
really weird.
it came with their core beliefs. The missionaries had core beliefs that were based off of these regurgitated scriptures that who knows, that weren't even
Yeah,
originally written in English.
that. Well,
But
but here's the thing, though, man. Those scriptures, if taken literally, actually do teach you to love everybody and treat everybody good. But when you say those core beliefs, it's the beliefs beyond the words on the paper that's
mhm.
fucking up the whole show.
Oh yeah, we have to establish that from the get go.
Yeah.
Like, if okay, yeah, the Roman Catholic Church in the Vatican, they were signing off on slavery. Okay, they're like, okay, sure, like this is fine. We'll sign off on it. We'll let you do this. We give you the green light to start exporting these human bodies
Mhm.
outside. So if they signed off on that, and they signed off on, they knew slavery was going on. People were building churches, missions on the West Coast. Here where I am, we have missions all up and down the West Coast, where missions used to house Native people in servitude.
Mm.
So yeah, we can't we have to make that, we have to set that, set
And
that like on the get,
speaking
like just
about the
from the start.
beliefs, we'll go to this graphic that you sent me, of what the Spaniards did. I mean,
Yes,
isn't this a
yes, pull
Catholic
it up.
society as well?
So
Um,
Balboa's dogs killing our
yes.
two spirit people. So this is from the Harlan Pruden presentation. But if you can look, let's see, if I don't know if you could
Oh,
see
you
in
want to read it?
the
Okay, give me a
fine print
second.
at the bottom.
Give me a second. I got to take this stuff off so people can actually see it. Sorry, guys. All right.
So what it depicts is colonizers at the top, and then sicking their dogs on basically two spirit people. It says Balboa setting his dogs upon Indian practitioners of male love. So 1594, of the Spanish invader Vasco Nunez de Balboa. And then he says he lived from 1475 to 1519, shown in Central America with his troops presiding over the execution of Indian, whom, in bold, he ordered eaten alive by the war dogs for having practiced male love, right? So this is same something, these individuals were the same sex. Who knows what
Mhm.
their gender roles were and what their identity was, right? But maybe they were queer, right? So they, in a whatever way and capacity, they, that's how they were, and they were targeted and killed for that. So can you imagine that happening in any other, like in Hawaii, in other cultures? It happened. I even learned like the practice of castration even came was not common, and it became accepted in India by the Hijra class, but it was attributed by the practice of Muslim rule, because the Muslims practiced slavery too. Not the
Mm-hmm.
Muslims, but the Arab. There was an Arab slave trade, but a lot of them were Muslim, and they would castrate their servant slaves who were homosexual by nature, and so even castration wasn't necessarily like. All I'm saying is that wasn't, people could be two-spirit without wanting to change things up. They could be accepted as who they were, as they were, and how they showed up in the world. Aesthetically,
Mm-hmm.
they could still show up and have, say, wore female regalia and you're male bodied, but that doesn't mean you had to do these altercations that now a lot of people in our culture usually feel like they have to complete themselves,
Mm-hmm.
because we're very cis normative. We're like, that's the standard. So, but
Mm-hmm.
like you said, the young, people are coming up with different, labels, non-binary, and so they're busting the boxes anyways, which is
Yeah,
inevitable. There's
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. So, we're getting close to the end of the show, but before
Okay.
we did this, I wanted to show a couple more of the graphics from the world cultures, because you sent me something here that was really dope, and it really showed off how a lot of the other cultures really see these things, or it's actually not
Yes.
see these things, but you're showing the verbiage
They
and the
have their own
wording.
language. They
Yes.
have their own language. And remember, language is important. Even in our culture, like, language is everything, because if you use
Hmm.
the right language, then you could be showing, it's the difference between showing respect to someone or disrespecting someone. And so
Absolutely.
yeah, this is from the Two Spirit uh, video that I mentioned, and this was one of the slides, and this is just names of basically what would be the equivalent of a two-spirit person in cultures outside of North America. So one of the ones that I mentioned is Mahu, which you see in Pacific Islanders. Hawaii had Mahu. Tahiti used similarly Mahu. In Samoa and Tonga, they had something, their words were different but similar. So fa'afafine in Samoa, and then fakafefine or fakalady in Tonga. So, I mean, these people had it way before any contact, pre-contact.
Mm.
I don't Some of them I don't know about. So like Malaysia, the Maknia, some of them I couldn't find much on. We know Hijra, so we saw Hijra
Hmm.
in Pakistan, and then in Tamil, the Tamil people of Sri Lanka. There's uh, Varanas of Avar. You We'll see it in the next slide. I
Oh,
probably
okay.
can't say it
Let me
right.
see it. Let me see it then. Let me see get this up.
It's the other slide with yeah. There you
This
go.
one, yeah.
Yeah. So at the bottom you see South Asia, Hijra, and then
Uh-huh.
Eravani, Tamil Nadu, which is Eravani was, I think that's more the Sri Lanka. But you see, let's see, which ones can we Waria, Indonesia. If you, there's a few things on them. Thailand. I mean, a lot of them. Oh, Nadli at the top. That's for the Navajo. That's Native American. A
Hmm.
lot of them, I don't know. You have Africa, Ethiopia. You have Ashtim, which is from an Ethiopian tribe, and the Ashtim were male-bodied into. There you go. There you go.
Yep.
So, among the Male of southern Ethiopia, a small minority of men crossed over to feminine roles called Ashtim, These biological males dressed like women and performed female tasks, cared for their own houses, and apparently had sexual relations with men, according to Donald Donham, 1990-1992. So this is a fairly recent anthropology statement, in who wrote in 1975, I was aware of only one Ashtim in Maliland, although informants asserted that more had existed in the 19th century. Indeed, part of the Mali kin's traditional installation had consisted of a ritual ordination of an Ashtim. So these are the little tidbits that you can't really like, you just got to take it and kind of like think about it, and it's going to look different in every culture. It's not always going to be the same. There's not one standard. So the gender role might change slightly, or but yeah. And one that wasn't mentioned in that list that you can actually look up a lot on is in Mexico. They're in the Zapotec region. There is the Muxes, Muxes, and they are they're traditionally they existed prior to colonization. There's a debate. There's a suggestion that maybe they started wearing female clothing after. However, these are people who are born male. They live the social road and attitude of women, and it's suggested that they generally don't suffer from dysphoria because in these village communities they are respected, they are seen as good luck, right? But once you leave the village communities and you go more into the westernized cities or the bigger cities, then that's where they start experiencing this more dysphoria and more of the the abuse or the whatever it may be, like the hate, right? Just in general. So Mouches, yeah, and there was a Mouche that made it to, I think it was Elle magazine. There's a big magazine that I don't know if it was Elle or Pose, but it features one of them. They're always dressed in very bright, elaborate clothing, and they're from the Zapotec region in Mexico, and highly respected. And they take on the gender role of women. They do things with the family. They often stay with the family and help the family, and with things around the house, or just kind of, that's something, and yet another proof, and even though it says that it suggested that they didn't quite, things evolve through time, things change, so maybe they didn't always show up the same way. Maybe they were still queer, effeminate, but maybe they didn't always wear all the the regalia or the women's clothing that they do today. But things changed and things evolved. They still had their specific role in that society as who they are now. That's why they're respected today in those village communities.
My man, see, dropping knowledge up in here. So this, I'm glad you came on, bro. Everyone who watched this show, I hope you took a lot away from it. I hope you learned quite a bit from it. And, the main thing that we're really driving home here is the fact that the concept of transgender, the concept of the third gender, the concept of people living outside of the cis normative, society that we've kind of grown up in is, it's ancient. It's been around. It's all across the world. And, it is not new. It is not something imported from Europe. It is a part of African culture. It's a part of Native American culture, Mexican culture, Asian culture. It's a part of world culture. So, people who fit into different boxes, have places in these societies. The language goes far back. Again, nothing new at all. So I hope you guys really took a lot away from this. And Emil, I thank you so much.
Yeah,
for
man.
spending time with us, bro.
And if I can leave anything, like the purpose of sharing this information is really just to like promote more equanimity and love amongst each other, and like see the beauty in each other, because you know what, trans kids were being kicked out of their homes because their parents are religious and they're left to the streets, like recently there was that media the media covered this trans woman in Puerto Rico who was murdered, unfortunately, and she was out in the streets, and I think it was Bad Bunny. I'm pretty sure it's Bad or J Balvin, maybe J Balvin, one of those reggaeton guys. He did a performance on a I don't know if it was it might have been Jimmy Fallon, but he did a performance in a skirt and he
Oh
dedicated the
yeah.
performance to her. And I thought that was super cool. Now you have guys and artists who, are showing up and showing love and support for these people who are ostracized, who are abused in society, who are
Mhm.
ridiculed, like if anybody saw the documentary on Netflix with Miss Cox,
Oh,
and it's the one
is
the
that
doc
Disclosure?
Disclosure,
Oh,
yes,
okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
yes, and
Okay.
we learn about the how basically they in Disclosure basically shows that any time the media represented people who were like not of the cis standard of like they showed
Hmm.
tendencies either to cross dress or were trans, there's ridicule, there's like defamation of character all throughout those things.
Yes.
And so, dude, we just need to take this knowledge and realize, yo, before these people were mediators. I forgot to mention, in the two-spirit culture, they were mediators because those culture did have strict gender roles between men and women, but and certain, like, if I'm going to talk to you about like guy stuff like cars and stuff, and we're really into cars, we're going to have these technical language, right, that like girls
Hmm.
might not understand, and same thing, women might use technical language for things that we might not understand, but the two-spirit people were a bridge to that, so they could go over here and be like, oh, what are you guys doing, all right, and then go to the men and be like, oh, what are you guys doing, okay, okay, and be this bridge, between the two groups. They can help
Mm,
mediate, and so everybody has a purpose. Everybody here has a purpose. We need to
absolutely.
embrace them. We'll see, if we do that, we'll see all those things go down. Parents accepting their kids the way they are, the toxic masculinity that is like misdirected, and that often turns into a hate crime with against trans women and stuff. I believe we
Mhm.
can see all that go away, but we just need to spread the knowledge, spread the truth, and know the
Just be
truth,
free,
man.
man.
Be
Just let
free.
people be, bro. Like it's in all aspects of this whole society culture. Like people just got to let go. You can't force people to live in the box that you want them to live in. And we're a Christian society. Christianity is about loving people and accepting them. That's Jesus Christ. You're trying to be Christ-like. Jesus Christ accepted everybody. He wasn't holier than now. He kicked it
And
with everybody.
he was not mainstream. He was not
Exactly.
mainstream. He was shaking things up. He was challenging people's core beliefs at that time.
Yes.
So that's what we're doing. We're trying to challenge people's
Hell
beliefs.
yeah. The next
Yeah,
time you say, hey, that person should be like this, or that guy should be like this, or they should like this, or they should like re-examine what you think other people should be doing, and then also re-examine why you think you should be having an opinion of what other people should be doing in terms of their sexuality and how they live and how they perform. Like that's a problem. Which is why, can't wait to be a parent because, I'm just gonna be the kind of parent where I just love my kid. That's it. Like, hey, I want to raise a black child that grows up in a world where they're allowed to be free because we just imprison our children with our bullshit. And it's just like that their life is not about me, it's about them. Like I think
yeah,
parents and people, adults, we think about ourselves way too much when it comes to the kids, how they turn out, what we want for them, what they have to be, what's success, what isn't success, all of that junk. Just let these kids, they'll find their way. Just like humankind has for centuries, if not thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions, however many years you've been on this planet.
yeah. Well,
It's just natural.
these young kids are getting it though. I got
Absolutely.
a 15-year-old daughter, and she's like, yeah. we're pretty open. Like, she told me like, yeah, it's not like when you were young. Like there, a lot of we're pretty open and
Mm-hmm.
nobody's, yeah, they're less judgmental.
I mean, you know what, bro? All I can say is we'll see. Cause I'm gonna just be honest. I'm a '90s kid. In the '90s, being black was everything. All the coolest people in the world were black in the '90s. Like, yeah, Michael Jordan, yeah,
It's
Will
true.
Smith, but yeah, Michael Jackson, yeah, Bo Jackson, Mike Tyson, Martin. It's just all sectors. Like, the Wayans family was on top. Like,
Oh yeah.
the black people was making white people famous, and Jim Carrey. Like, it's just crazy. But man, I'm just saying, I grew up in a world where it's like, oh yeah, we're the new generation, and racism ain't really like that, X, Y, and Z. And then people grew up, and once it was one of those situations where they grew up, and once they became adults, they clung to where they were from and what they were really about, and it just like it was. I became quite disappointed with quite a few people in my 20s, but it was
Mm.
just like, hey, we were cool, and you didn't have a racist bone in your body. You weren't talking about those thugs and those bad guys and cops should do this and all. We weren't talking any of that junk. And then now you're an adult, and that's what it's about.
Yeah, you gotta watch.
It,
You gotta be careful what you put into your mind. Media
it's
is
crazy,
powerful,
man.
man. The
Media
media,
is absolutely powerful, bro. And I
it'll have you
tried.
thinking a certain way.
I am leaving the space. I've been a member of the media for 14 years. I am done with it. I'm leaving it. I'm moving on to greener pastures in a different industry. But I ain't gonna lie. Facebook is full of people that complain. The media don't tell these stories. The media don't do this, don't do that. I literally will put out my Facebook. Hey, everybody. So it's Pride Month. What stories do you want reported for Pride Month? Crickets. Crickets, crickets, and crickets. I'm like, you have a chance right now to dictate what the media portrays during Pride Month, and ain't nobody got no ideas. I guess I'll come up with something on my own. We'll see. But it's just like, that I think we live in an age where, we get to craft our own media. Like this shit right here, bro. This shit's powerful. This shit's gonna live on the internet forever. This shit will. This is the kind of stuff that will educate somebody who finds it 7 years from now, 17 years from now, 20 years from now. If YouTube is still up, I don't know. But it's just like we can be the voice. We can reach people, change hearts and minds, and you don't need the brick and mortar media companies anymore. Because with YouTube, you can reach millions more people than the news stations can.
That's
Frankly,
true. Absolutely. They're
frankly,
paying YouTubers
yeah.
to do commercials and stuff now because they know they're
There's a
the
lot of money in YouTube. Trust me, bro. I run that side for Fox. Fox is getting a lot of fucking money for their local news stations on that. In fact, just this past month, my one Fox station in Houston, the team that I manage brought in $73,000 for the station in just the month of May.
wow.
If you were an individual YouTuber and you were just getting 100,000 views here, 100,000 views there, like you're bringing in tens of thousands of dollars a month. There is big money in this stuff. Not that I am getting any money for it because nope. But at least not from YouTube. At least we haven't gotten to that point yet. But you know what? We're gonna wrap up. But before we go, I got to do a little promotion, little pitch forward to some shows and stuff, ideas, things we got coming on. I told you
Okay.
guys about this show. It happened. One of the things that I promised on my Patreon finally happened. We have recorded multiple sessions. We have reviews. Fellas, men, if you are attracted to trans women, if you like going to strip clubs, if you are curious about these T-girl events that they're advertising in like Atlanta, New York, Chicago, Orlando, Tampa, LA, wherever, it's all over the place. Even in Kentucky, they have these like T-girl nights at these strip clubs, right? These venues. Look, we're doing reviews. The guys are talking. So we have guys going all over the country checking these places out, and it's really fascinating what they come back with. So if you're interested in any of that stuff, get on over to the Patreon because all of those conversations, the full review, of a lot of these venues and events will be on Patreon. We give you the good, bad, and the ugly. We do just give a solid recommend whether we want to not go. And actually, most of them are all right. There's only been one where it's just like, this event kind of sucks. You probably don't want to go. And sorry, ladies, I know this isn't content for you specifically. This is for the fellas. But these events bring in a lot of money. When you go to a strip club and you go to one of these places and you're ready to have a good time, spend some money, the last thing you want is a place that's dirty, unsafe, people with attitudes, just you don't want a bad, nasty environment. So that's just what it is. That's what the guys want. That's what they're looking for. So it's on the Patreon, guys. Also, I have gotten I've got quite a few of them done actually. So we have a series called the Transgender Chronicles. These are one-on-one interviews with transgender men. They talk about their experience, talk about what led them, where their attraction began, some of the struggles they've had. If you really want to hear a deep dive from different guys about their experiences, that's also on the Patreon. And I will tell you, not full spoilers because you don't know which one this is, but one of them includes a fascinating tale about, really one of them was talking about how their friend got killed. One of the guys, he was talking about how, the hood found out that his friend was messing with trans women. His gang found out. And, a week later, this guy turns up dead. And he is like 110% sure that is why he died. And, I am definitely paraphrasing the fuck out of this story, but it is something else to just sit and listen to these real life fucking experiences. All that stuff's on the Patreon for as little as $5 a month. I know there are different tiers and different tiers offer different things. So it might be like 10 or 15, depending on what you want to see. But, go check it out. Patreon.com. Just search Men Like Us. You'll find it and you'll be helping to support this program. And helping me to, pay for this platform and pay for, new equipment and a set that I'm going to build in my new place. Going to go green screen. It's going to be dope. But, none of this stuff is free. I've been, this is all coming from my own pocket. So anything you guys could do to help would be great. But I'm also giving you something in return. So patreon.com, search Men Like Us. And before we go, I want to say thank you to everyone who was watching. The comments was lit. So, shout out to Dwayne, Nicole, Javon, Tracy, Liberty, Denai, Mexican China, Calendria, White Mike, what up, boy? Michaela, the wife of James Speed, who has been on this show and didn't tell me her husband was a content creator. He's always been the shy one who didn't want to be on camera. What up, Samaya? What up, Councilman Rick Gordon? Shout out. Leah Stokes, what's going on? Thanks for stopping through. Nicole, be sweet. What's up, Ayo? All sorts of people watching today, so appreciate y'all. Appreciate the love. We're going to be back every Friday. Next Friday might not happen. My uncle's getting married next Friday, and me and the girl, we're gonna go check that out. So see you next weekend, ATL. But with that, we out, and we'll see y'all. And I'll probably pre-record something and run it next week. But we'll see y'all next week. All right.
Hey, thanks for having me, Chris.